Hi everyone, just making sure we've got everybody in before we were making a start. It's Alison here and my colleague Jen with us today to look at pathways to read. So thanks all for coming. Hopefully you've had a really nice couple of days back so far and your children are starting to settle in. I think what we're going to do, if it's all right, is turn the camera off so that you can see the slides. We've got bits and pieces on all of the slides, so we'll keep popping them back on for if we have any questions or discussions. But for now, I'm going to just turn the camera off and we'll get going. I'm going to start and chat to you about pathways to read and some of the changes that we've made to include reading fluency and some format changes really that we have kind of created in response to feedback from teachers. So we'll get going, and just please, if you've got any questions, there's two of us here obviously, so if you want to put anything in the chat or you want anything clarifying, then please just try and get, I know it's a bit slightly different online, isn't it, but if you can just get in touch and we'll answer questions live. Okay, so I'm going to start off my first part of the session by having a little look at reading fluency and the latest research out there really regarding fluency. And I've started with this quote from the Education Endowment Foundation just to get you to have a little look at what fluency is and kind of how it builds. Obviously, you can see the words that I've put in bold here. We've got to start with speed and accuracy before we can then build stress and intonation when we're learning to read. And then once we've got those in place, we can kind of work on that prosody and be able to show understanding of the text. And we really need to think about fluency as a bridge from word reading and that kind of being able to apply phonics and use phonic knowledge, and fluency then becomes that bridge into comprehension and the understanding. I think it's kind of nicer on this diagram. If I show you here, you've got the kind of progression in fluency. Obviously you need to have that accuracy first. So your pupils obviously in right from the start in EY all the way through year one and sometimes even into year two, we'll be following your systematic synthetic phonics program, and there'll be those children in 2 and 3 and 4 as needed, kind of carrying on with phonics support to get the accuracy right. And before you can even look at fluency, we really need to work on that accuracy first. Then once that's kind of in place, you can kind of work on the automaticity. So being able to read accurately, it feels much less effortful. It feels effortless. And also the speed is starting to pick up. So that's your automaticity. Once that's in place, we can start to think about the prosody. So reading, being able to comprehend the text, reading with intonation, being able to vary volume, phrasing, smoothness, pace, and actually starting to sound interesting and engaging. And those of you that are year 2 teachers know when children kind of cross through these stages and get to that point where they're starting to get it, they start to understand the text. We're obviously having a little look at fluency today because we have added some sections regarding modelling fluency and practicing fluency into the pathways to read plans. So a lot of this that's on this diagram here has been taken into consideration. A couple of other things that were kind of flagged up for us is obviously we read in July last year the reading framework, and there was lots of tips about fluency in here, and I just think this is worth thinking about. Your beginner readers don't just go through a magic barrier. They've got to kind of be taught from decoding to becoming fluent. So really it's just thinking about what we're doing in schools to support with that and how we can move that forward. Another report that I just wanted to refer to was the Ofsted Telling the Story report, which came out in March, which had some really positive findings with regards to reading and phonics and word reading. You can see the top bit there. The increased emphasis on reading has helped leaders to understand the importance of teaching systematic synthetic phonics. Compared with our findings in previous reports, this represents an overwhelmingly positive shift towards having all children reading by the end of Key Stage 1. So what we're doing with phonics now is really effective. Word reading is really is great in all schools really. So that's kind of the summary of the findings. just to kind of go back here, it was 25 primary schools that they've looked at to kind of create this report, just to give you an idea. So these are bullet points, obviously, are a summary of the findings. So all primary schools that were visited teach pupils to read using the consistent SSP programme. Most teach phonics daily to all pupils from the start, and pupils are now using a decodable books that match the sound. So you can just kind of have a little reflect and think about if you're within that same kind of demographic and those three things you've got in place. But this was the kind on the downside. This is what was like the findings or the next steps that schools need. So what they're saying is some schools then are great in continuing pupils' reading fluency once they can decode. So some of those 25 were found to be doing a great job with that. Lots of opportunities to read aloud and be read to, and learn how to control pace and intonation in the reading. But we've got in other schools here, however, leaders recognise the importance of reading fluently, but are not clear about how to make sure pupils are successful. So that's where we've kind of come in and really helped you with that, with the changes we've made in Pathways to Read. Again, this is lovely. This kind of diagram replaces the simple view of reading by Duke and Cartwright. Produced this in 2021. And it's more of an active view of reading. So the bits I want you just to kind of see here is this purple bit, the bridging processes. So we've got, and I did say earlier about children not passing through a magic barrier from word recognition to comprehension. Now there's a recognition that actually there's quite a bit of work we have to do to get them from just being able to read words to then being able to comprehend them. And you'll see reading fluency kind of really sits in that middle point there as well. So when we're thinking about teaching reading fluency, we need to think about all the different aspects that are involved and what reading fluency looks like. So that's what I'm going to take you through here. So just be having a little think about this yourself. If we were live, I'd ask you to kind of shout some of these out. Maybe you'd want to pop it in the chat. But there are 4 kind of clear aspects that we need to think about. The first one being expression. That's probably something you've mentally come up with yourselves there now. So this really refers to children responding to the kind of the print that they're reading and showing enthusiasm, changing the volume when it's needed, taking care of things like when is the character speaking and being able to add expression where it's needed. The second aspect to think about is the phrasing. So being able to kind of use intonation, and this really focuses in on punctuation and also your phrase and clause structure. So there might be commas in there and sometimes there isn't, but it's thinking about when you've got a longer sentence, how you read that aloud, and also how you read it in your head to get to the end of the sentence and still be able to understand it all. The third aspect is thinking about smoothness. So this is about reading the text accurately with few mistakes. So being able to really be able to kind of read at speed, but without making lots of mistakes. But when they do make mistakes, to kind of be able to self-correct. And then the fourth aspect here is pace. So being able to read at a conversational pace without labouring over the text and keeping that maintained throughout all the reading. So what we need to think about is you as teachers modelling all of these 4 and teaching how to do it and giving children practice of each of these 4, and also thinking that actually we're not just going to work on all of them at once, because with everything that we teach them in all the subjects, it's really difficult to master if we're focusing on it all at once. So what we've really unpicked is each of these and looked at the progression in, for example, phrasing, pace, smoothness, all of those, so that we can look at what that looks like in year 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So that's what we need to look at, but then we need to think about how to practice this. And we've taken a lot of the strategies from Improving Literacy at Key Stage 2 and lots of other places, lots of research that's gone into this, but we've got 6 key kind of strategies that we've used in the Pathways to Read plans. Some of them were already in there anyway previously, and some of them are new. So I'll just kind of chat you through the 6. You'll see there's a 1 of 2. I've got 3 on each slide. So how are we developing fluent readers? This is the number 1. This is the top, the best way to do it for you as teacher to model it effectively. So you model in intonation and fluency with your pupils following the text. So when you're teaching pathways to read lessons, this is probably what you've been doing most of the time anyway. You reading aloud, pupils following the text. If you've got students reading aloud, children can sometimes not follow it as well. It is always best if the teacher leads the session. So that's number 1. The second one, you using choral reading. So you reading aloud, but inviting the pupils to read aloud alongside you. So that says while student is, but more than 1 student. So this is your whole class. You're going to be a whole class. So it might be that you practice it and model it first as a teacher, then you will choral read something straight after. The next one is echo reading, and this is a great little strategy, but it's only for small sections of text. You can't really echo read a whole paragraph. It doesn't work because pupils can't remember or kind of take in what you've modelled the first time. So the idea is if you've got tricky words or tricky vocabulary or phrases that are difficult to read, or a particularly awkward section of with punctuation, you'll show them how to do it, model it. You might repeat it a couple of times yourself and then get the pupils to read it back to you. We've added quite a lot of opportunities for echo reading for particular texts throughout pathways to read. Okay, the next one would be repeated reading. This is great for an intervention as well. It really works well where you can work one-to-one with a pupil or with a small group of pupils. So you might have a pupil reading a section of text, and then the teacher or a partner gives feedback and says, actually, that was pretty good, but you didn't stop at the comma, and that word you didn't read correctly. It sounds like this. Gives feedback, and then the pupil tries it again. And the idea is you keep going over and over again until it's read with 99% accuracy and the appropriate expression and fluency. Next one is paired reading. So pupils reading to each other, alternating sentences or alternating paragraphs or sections. So you can kind of see, if I take you back, it's almost like a gradual release really, from really teacher kind of modelling and teacher leading the session to now pupils taking a little bit more responsibility themselves. And then finally, the final one being the pupils reading on their own and practicing individual speed reading. This is more probably appropriate for year 5 and 6 to kind of develop that speed and also for getting them ready for the amount of reading they need to do in a SATs test, really. So what we've done is we have put this progression document together. I'm going to click through. You'll see that's year 1, 2. This is year 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can see the 2 there. We've looked at how many words per minute a child in that age group should be reading, and we've kind of tried to plan the amount of text so that it's appropriate for this practice. We've looked at phrasing and smoothness and what the progression of that looks like. I'll take you back. You can see it starts at year 1, 2. Pace and expression and volume. So we've used this as a kind of a guide to us to make sure that we get the progression right in the pathways to read plans. Okay, what I'm going to chat you through now is the changes that we've made and kind of just give you a little bit of an update as to some of the things that we've done with pathways to read since we've written the original programme. And there'll be different people on here that have got different versions, but if I just kind of talk through it all, then you can make a decision if there's any plans you want to update or any that you want to order, and I'll just kind of give you a flavour of everything we've done. But basically now we have got 2 sets ready to go of updated plans and PowerPoints. So after this webinar you can get in touch with us and let us know if there's any updates or changes you want to make to your current programme. So most of you will probably have a whole school programme that looks something like this. So that's the whole school overview of set 1 as it stood. And some of you will have a year 2 to year 6 programme, but some of you may have a year 1 to year 6 programme. I will talk about the year 1 units for those of you that don't have them in a couple of minutes. So we now have a set 2. or a set of additional units, because we wrote additional pathways to write units. So we've made pathways to read units to match those pathways to write units. Now you will see there's some white, there's some purple and some white. Basically, purple and new, white means there's no change. So I'll take you back. Look, you can see on here, the koala who could, for example, is still the koala who could here. We didn't change a text unless it was needed. So we've got, for example, Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls. That matches equally well whether you have a set 1 pathways to write text or a set 2. So we just felt, because we didn't want to kind of make it a massive cost to schools, we tried where possible to keep the original pathways to read text. Also, some of these texts are chosen on literary merit, and we just really wanted to keep them in. We felt passionate about what they brought to the programme. So some have been kept in the set 2 for that reason. And also, I'm just trying to think, were there any other reasons? Oh, some of them as well were anthologies, and we felt, and they had lots of text within it. So we felt that there was plenty for you to read to support with the pathways to write from within the anthologies. Okay, so here, I mean, this is just a snip taken from the website. You'll see these are all of some of the new texts from Key Stage 1 and then Key Stage 2 that you've got that are updated. And I'm going to take you through them in a little bit more detail. So we have got some books that we've chosen for curriculum coverage. So some of them, Greek myths was something that we didn't cover in Pathways to Write Set 1 that we wrote into Pathways to Write Set 2. And we felt that we needed to do the reading text to match, because we wanted to really knowledge build around that topic. The same with Amazing Rivers, Great Fire of London, that matches the Great Fire of London text that we've got in Year 2 Pathways to Write. The Survivors builds kind of the knowledge of the Arctic and the Antarctic, and kind of living in or surviving in cold areas, which fits with one of the kind of Year 5, 6 topics. So that's one of the reasons. Another of the reasons was we wanted to try and increase diversity and ensure greater representation of pupils through the additional text that we've chosen. We have this philosophy, you might have heard me say this before, where we like to have windows and mirrors, really, so that some pupils get to see themselves in a book, but also the windows to see the wider world and kind of be able to see other people and their stories in books. So we have thought about that as well. We've also tried to produce some ourselves. So all of these ones that are on screen now are reading texts that you can have on screen or you can print out. And this is, again, it's just so that you don't have to buy as many books. But also it's because we couldn't find a book on that topic that was suitable for that age group with those particular features that we needed of the text. So by producing them ourselves, we've been able to kind of add what was needed into it to make the mastery keys, and so that it all kind of works together. What we've also done as well is we've tried to keep where we had quite, I've mentioned the Greek myths already, but where a Pathways to Write book wasn't used fully, we've used it for Pathways to Read as well. So the Windrush, for example, Place for Me, stories from the Windrush generation. You look in Pathways to Write maybe about 6 to 8 different stories, but there was a whole wealth of stories and diaries and information that we still didn't touch when we looked at the Pathways to Write unit. So in Pathways to Read, you focus on the rest of it, which really helps build the knowledge, and it just gives them that greater kind of, what's the word? Well, I suppose it's greater knowledge of the whole context, really. So then the last thing just to mention is the year 1 books. So we have really kind of, this is in response to people who've said to us, why haven't we got year 1 books? And we've written these to run alongside your school's SSP programme. So the idea is that these are just a whole class session. They're for sharing with your year 1 pupils to develop a love of reading and show them a real book. It's not to interfere at all with your phonics programme. It's just to kind of be like a once a week, one-off lesson that develops comprehension and gets them ready for your whole class reading sessions from year 2 to year 6. It looks a lot of vocabulary. Also, obviously, the topic will support with writing and kind of developing the knowledge. It also introduces them, you'll see on there's a nice range of fiction and non-fiction books and fairy stories, contemporary stories, poetry. So it just gives them a nice range of texts, and really starts to work on the reading comprehension strategy. So it still has in it your retrieve, your clarify, your predict. So those are available. So they just are whole class lessons. There are teaching PowerPoints, but you just get 6 lessons with those, 1 a week. So if you haven't got year 1 and you're interested, again, that's something you can get in touch with us about after. Something else I'd just like to flag with you, thinking about kind of the text that we've chosen and how they support your curriculum. We have produced this document, and Jamie's going to email this out to you after this session, so that you've got it, because we did this just to support you with discussing your curriculum choices with Ofsted, or if you have any monitoring visits. It just shows you how the pathways to read units are linked to all the different aspects of SMSC. So they kind of relate to the particular aspects in the school inspection handbook, and it just shows you how they link. So we will send that out so that you can kind of see which texts have covered which aspects. So yeah, that we'll get that emailed afterwards. Okay, so that's the kind of the range of the set 2 text that we've got on the year 1 text. But now I want to talk to you about how we have added the aspects of fluency in. So I'll just kind of go through this and how the lesson plans have changed. So this now, so I'm not sure actually if any of you on here have ordered these new plans or have seen them yet, but basically there aren't major changes in terms of you're not going to need to change books or anything, but it's just in the format of the lesson. So again, it was feedback from teachers to try and be a little bit more flexible with kind of delivering these sessions. So a couple of the headlines about it really is it's still a unit lasts a half term. Each week's broken into daily whole class reading lessons, and that's the biggest shift. So we've taken out the group session, and they are all whole class sessions lasting, I would say, probably 30 minutes if you want the quality discussion. Probably you can get it done in 20 at a fast pace. But the idea is now you can do 5 30-minute sessions a week, so you've got a little bit of reading every day, or you can put them together. It's very flexible if you want to, and you can have an hour-long session that's made up of a couple of the lessons that we've put in. It's still got, each session has still got that clear teaching focus with the mastery approach, and year 2 has remained the same. So we've done it for Key Stage 2, but for year 2, we've still kept the group read format because we felt that you needed to really target pupils at their word reading ability in year 2, because you're going to have the ones that exited the programme in year 1 and are becoming really fluent, and you're going to have those people who just exited the programme, and you're going to have those pupils who are still working on your SSP programme. So we just felt that really to target children's needs in year 2, we wanted to keep that group session in. What some schools are doing, though, are still teaching. Let's say, for example, you do Read, Write, Ink, and you've got a group of, let's say, 15 pupils who've exited the programme. You might still want to teach that grouped format to that whole group of that whole class. So it still works really flexibly. So each week looks like this. So day 1 has got Predict and Clarify, which was the top half of the whole class session. But then we've got a model and fluency part to it. Day 2 has fluency practice, followed by retrieval practice, and then working on the mastery. Day 3, it's a whole class read, but pupils are encouraged to read independently. Day 4 is the follow-on task. So you've got written evidence of all of this mastery here and mastery here that you've practiced in day 2. And then day 5, we have put a session in for reading for pleasure. So we're advocating time for children to be reading a text at their own choice and their own standard. So that's what that looks like. So I thought I would take you through. I'm going to share it with you with the Amazing Rivers book. it's a year 3 because it kind of sits in the middle, doesn't it, from year 1 to year 6, and it's a really gorgeous book. If you haven't got this one, it's a really lovely one, a great non-fiction hardback book. So I'm going to just kind of give you a quick flavour of what the new plans look like. So now you print the whole of these 2 pages off for a week. So print it off back to back, and you've got your week's reading planning on 1 page, and you can see session 1, session 2, session 3, session 4, session 5. So hopefully that looks really clear for you. You can see as well where the turquoise bit comes in, showing where you're focusing on the mastery skill. So it comes in at session 2 there, and it's practiced independently in session 3, but it's then practiced again for the follow-on task in session 4. You'll see as well here, actually, you know what, I'm going to do it on the next slide because it's a bit bigger. So session 1, the predict and clarify. So no major changes there. But here we've got modelling fluency, so that it tells the teacher exactly what they need to read, and it also tells you exactly what you need to focus in on. So you can see here, stressing of certain words to convey meaning and engage the listener. So whatever's in that modelling fluency bit, that when we move on to session 2, I'm just going to flick through these quickly, you'll see is practiced. So pupils reread page 34 before kind of working on the retrieval questions. So again, just coming back and just to show you the teaching PowerPoint, I'm going to come back to that. So we'll look at the predict, then clarify, and then look at the modelling of the fluency. So the PowerPoint hasn't changed massively. You'll see the predict symbol there. Clarify coming in next, but then we've got new slides for practicing fluency. So here, which words should we stress? I've actually highlighted them here just to kind of show you that this is what we might be looking at. So you might be modelling, getting the teacher to model something like reading this bit aloud. So however, the Amazon is definitely the largest river when it comes to the sheer volume of fresh water it carries to the Atlantic Ocean. This measures a staggering 200,000 cubic meters every second. So we have put on the plan the section of text. If I just take you back, it says here, sorry about this, too many clicks back. You're looking at page 34. And what I've done here is I've typed out the section of 34 that I wanted to model that aspect of fluency. So then the session 2 begins obviously with practicing and the pupils having a go at rereading that section of text that you've already read, to allow them to kind of practice the fluency themselves before moving on to taking it and choosing another paragraph from the page, working out which words to stress to convey meaning and engage the listener. So they'll have a go at the one that the teacher did, then choose one of their own and work in pairs. Text mark it together, work out what should be emphasised, then reread it together. And there's an example on there. So that's what the first 2 lessons look like. Then we move on to the retrieval questions. What we've actually done as well, just to kind of it's annoying this, isn't it? Sorry, you will see. We didn't previously have the answers to these in the plans, but we've put them in now just to make that a little bit slicker and easy for you when you're teaching it. Ideally, what you'd do is print the plan off, so you've got all the answers there, and you've got the main teaching points, but then you can use the PowerPoint alongside it for your delivery. So your retrieval questions are coming in then, and then obviously your explain part of the text next. So then session 3 is kind of the new session. So this is what used to be the grouped session, and we've kept some of the core skills from that in it. So you'll notice, for example, we haven't removed the strategy check, we've kept that in. We have made it now so that this is always a summarise. So whatever happened in session 1 and 2, you'll be expecting pupils to summarise what they've read. And you'll see there's a little bit of guidance on that. That should just take a couple of minutes. Don't spend ages on that, just a quick recap to orientate them back into the text again. So then you've got the strategy check, which practices all the aspects of reading that you might not have as part of the national curriculum. And I'm just going to click forward to just show you. You can see there's the summary. This is a new slide with a heading summarise, and you'll see the summarise symbol that's on there. And then this is also a new slide in the teaching PowerPoints for the strategy check. So this particular one is about vocabulary, but I'm going to just click on and show you some of the examples. Here's some of the key stage 1 and some of the key stage 2. These are all in the methodology, the updated methodology that would come with any updated units that you decide to go with. But if you have a look at some of these are some of the skills that you would need to practice, but don't necessarily come under a national curriculum objective. So the idea is that you'll model here how to use that strategy. Children have a little practice, but then they've got time to practice it in the independent reading. So then after you've done the summary and the strategy check, this is time for pupils to read independently. So actually we're sticking with the same text on Amazing Rivers, but now they're going to have a look at page 36 themselves and take some of the sections and read it independently, and start to look at which words might need to be emphasised and which bits, which punctuation you need to take notice of. But our particular mastery focus on this is structure and organisation. So they've got some retrieval. So they've got some retrieval questions to practice as part of it. So what we're suggesting here is that your pupils have the text themselves, and you would then support pupils whose word reading is below expected standard. So if pupils are still accessing phonics support outside of your reading lesson, those children might need support here. And we would suggest that you read aloud and kind of model it yourself and get them to repeated read and practice together in a small group, while the rest of your class, we're talking kind of your 80% who are working towards an expected, they should be accessing and having a go themselves at the independent reading, and then having a go at the whatever the task is. I'm just going to click through because I've got a slide with it on here. So there's a question here: can you retrieve the information? So they're being asked to read page 36 and then do this true or false quiz in response to it. And then there's some gaps at the bottom for them to create some of their own afterwards. So there's a little kind of independent task for them to do. Then session 4, the follow-on task, you'll probably be really familiar with, but there's a little bit more point into it now. There might be also an instruction about additional reading within that as well. And then, yeah, this particular follow-on task, we've tried to do a few more of these type of comprehension to get pupils to practice their kind of comprehension skills. These are all retrieval questions in loads of different formats so that they kind of get used to answering retrieval questions. Again, this is a new slide just with that instruction on, so you can kind of use that as a teaching point. So hopefully you'll find these updates that we've made really useful, really. I have put on there the session 5. I've kind of chatted through that. We have also updated our assessment materials. So we've kind of created some sheets that in line with the pathways to write to kind of support you with ongoing assessments at the end of each kind of half term. So you'd focus in and kind of assess children against the mastery keys. We have updated, I'm going to come back to that. We've updated the assessment guidance. I haven't got lots of time to talk about that tonight, but I just wanted to kind of make you aware that they're there. So we've got a weekly whole class feedback form as well for you to just record any findings that you have found when you've done your kind of reading. And these are all part of these new assessment booklets that are part of the updates. So we have also produced assessment guidance to show you how to use all of these. So that's all explained clearly in there as well. So I'm just going to kind of let you know how much they are before I hand over to Jen to chat through the portal. Any additional units that you buy, if you want set 2 units, thinking back to those ones that were purple that I showed at the start, there's 19 of them in total. So if you bought anywhere between 7 and 19, you're going to qualify for a 10% discount. That makes the units £27 each. If you just want 1 or 2 or 3, anywhere up to 6, the units are going to be £30. The whole set, if you bought all of them, is £5.13. And then if you want to just upgrade, if you want to keep your set 1 units because you're really happy with them, you've got all of those texts, you don't really want to kind of make changes, but you do want to upgrade and have the new package, of units, that's £150. So basically that equates to £30 a year group. So if you wanted to just update, for example, year 4 to try it and see how it worked, you could just upgrade a single year group. So that's kind of how that works. So I'm just going to put any questions on there because I know it's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour. Hopefully it's given you a bit of a flavour of any changes we made. Sorry, I'll just yeah. If anybody's got anything they want to ask in the chat, I'll just oh, I don't know if I'm there or not now. Yeah, we've come back on. Anybody got any further questions about pathways to read? Because if not, I'll. Oh, here we go. Brill, thank you. That's great. Thanks, Kate. That's great that Katie, sorry. Hopefully that's given you a little bit more information about it. Fab. What we are doing, if you are new to Pathways to Read, we are now, it's this week and next week, our team. You'll either hear from Jamie, Sally or Eve, who are busy sending out the updates. Anybody who bought the package from July is automatically getting these updated versions. So there, look out for those emails coming from us. Yeah, Katie, what I'm going to do is I'll just pop this down in my notes and get in touch with you after the session, if that's okay. So you'd just like to know, yeah, Katie. Great. And we've got another question on there. Yeah, we've got yeah, we've had a few schools that have tried it. Yeah. So the initial package is 1,675 for year 1 to year 6 with all the new units and PowerPoints. For those of you that wanted to know. So in year 2, Karen, is that how many Pathways to Read sessions? For year 2, I think we'd have to look at your individual timetable. I tell you what, if it's all right, Karen, I'll chat to Joe about it when I come in, because I think we just need to have a look and ideally, if you could have 3 sessions, that would be great for year 2. That's kind of yeah. And we've got another question from Sobia coming in. Are all the new units available now? Yes, they are. They're all updated and sorted now. Yeah. Oh, for year 3 to 6, the updates, there'll be £120 if you wanted to just update to the new units. And Rebecca. So, you know what, this is a great question. Rebecca's asked how many books do each class need? So ideally, we would recommend a half class set. Some schools can do it with 1 book and scan in the writing and put it on screen. And some schools will photocopy sections of text and it works absolutely fine. However, in terms of developing a love of reading, we've done quite a lot of looking into this and kind of pupil voice and case studies. It's working really well where if let me just show you this, for example. This is the book we've been looking at today. If your children can use that book and have one between 2 and they're able to kind of look forward and back and be able to use that text, it makes a massive difference. So if you can kind of go, even if it's one between 3, so they can kind of access over a partner of a shoulders partner, and it might be that you get in touch with us and ask about which books to look at first, and maybe you have a program of kind of buying them year on year, because there's some books it works better if you've got like these non-fiction books are better if you've got the book itself. But we do have a document that kind of supports you with which ones to have as a whole class set if it's a kind of a budget issue. Yeah, Andy, definitely. That's absolutely fine. I think if you want to trial one of the new units, I'm just going to write your name down the best thing to do about this is if you could email Jamie because he sorts out the trials, and I will let him know. So, and if you wouldn't mind, if you've got one of our emails, just start it with Jamie at theliteracycompany.co.uk and ask him, and we can get that trial set up. Yeah, Hayley, that's fine. That's fine. It's just, I think it just depends on where your children are up to in terms of the phonics program. A lot of people do teach the year 2 as a whole class. So you just need to think carefully about when children would access reading the books for their word reading standard. Does that answer the question, Hayley? Yeah, great. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just a bit like trying to read the questions and answer them at the same time. So it does look like I'm being a bit vacant, doesn't it? Okay. Again, we're on the end of an email. You can either add Alison with 2 L's at the Literacy Company, or you can email Jamie or any of us really, and we can answer any further questions you've got. So yeah, thanks very much.